go ahead and present your presentation, George.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I can't tell you how delighted I am to be here today to present a modification proposal to our consent decree detailing our long-term control plan for the remedy to the combined sewer overflow challenge that is in Washington, D.C. I'm glad to be joined by my compatriots at EPA in Region 3 and the Department of Justice. Since the last time I was here, we have taken 500 comments in from all sources during a 92-day comment period. We negotiated with tremendous thoroughness with EPA and the Department of Justice to come up with the modification proposal that I will summarize here. And that has been lodged with the court today, and as you heard, some of you might have heard at the press event that we held this morning with the mayor, but the 30-day comment period commenced today, according to John Cruden, as far as I understand. So there is a comment period.
Not quite today.
Not today.
The Federal Register notice will be published in the next 2 or 3 days, which will commence the 30-day.
Okay, I stand corrected. The 30-day comment period will commence when the Federal Register notice is published, which should be shortly, and then there will be a 30-day comment period, and the system is welcome to all of your comments. What I'm going to do is provide a summary, and thank you, Chris, for introduction. DC Environmental Network has been a good friend and ally, and I have no challenges or troubles at all that the network may continue, and in the future pushes us. That is exactly what an environmental network should do. But it's the go-to organization in our city to coordinate the actions of all you folks. And I certainly appreciate the network's participation on this on so many issues, so it's great to be here. It is a reasonably long presentation. I'll try to move through it reasonably quickly and then answer as many questions as you have. This is the beginning, not the end of that process. We can talk with Chris if there are future meetings or briefings that need to be held with a broader or smaller audience. We want to make sure, as we have tried to be at every step along the way, as open and as clear about what it is that we're proposing as possible. And as I said, we are not troubled by anyone who comes with whatever comments they may have. I will say that the proposal that you'll see has been modified significantly from what was summarized in this room more than a year ago, and I think in ways that are the result of the comments we received from the public. So my view is that it has been improved by the public process just as it should be. So the agenda, describing the plans, the background, the draft plan and comments, the recommended plan, that's what will be in the Federal Register in several days, predicted performance, benefits, and next steps. Fairly straightforward outline. This is one of our largest capital investments at DC Water. Carlton, as you know, is the director of our Clean Rivers project. This is the largest public works project happening in Washington, D.C., bar none. And certainly the largest that DC Water will ever undertake, but it's certainly not the only one, not for today, but their biosolids program is pretty fascinating, what we're investing on energy, nutrient removal from Chesapeake Bay. That's a $950 million, $470 million, $2.6 billion. You wrap this up. It's an extraordinary expenditure by our ratepayers. We are very aware that anything that we are able to do is the result of ratepayer participation and funding. This just shows the performance that we've been able to achieve at DC Water. We're pretty proud of the numbers. This was the 1985 discharge base. Here's the Chesapeake Bay goal. This is the new 4 milligrams per liter. In the permit, we are currently just became effective January 2nd this year, as I recall. This is 4 milligrams per liter. Up till just recently, this number was what, and we've been way ahead of our performance numbers throughout, and we continue to be ahead of the 4 milligrams per liter. Just want you to know our core performance under APDS permit, and this again enabled by you, has been excellent. I think we added up all the discharge levels. We've been ahead of what were required, and we have a full year of discharges ahead of schedule, or that we've done better than what required. Our view is that compliance is certainly what we do, but that is the minimum of what we do. We could do better whenever possible. Biosolids program I want to spend a lot of time on. These are the Canby digesters, first installation in North America, largest in the world. It cooks up a soup that goes into these digesters. These are 130 feet in diameter. They're gigantic when you're inside of them, and they're 70 feet tall. This process will generate up to 13 megawatts of power, 3 megawatts of which we use to run the system. Up to 10 is net green, clean power that we will use on site. And we're now looking at ways to expand and enhance this project. That was discretionary, $470 million. This is cutting the carbon footprint of the entire district of DC Water by 1/3. And we're the largest single user of power in the district. It's a remarkable project. But here's, let's get to the Clean Rivers project. This has been a long negotiation going back to Vicki, and the initial 19 was the long-term LTCP. For those of you who don't know the acronym, some of you know these in your sleep. That's the long-term control plan. That's the technical name of the planning response to a combined sewer problem. We call it Clean Rivers because nobody knows what a long-term control plan is. Sounds like what my daughter needs for math. We started that negotiation in 1998, long before my time. The final long-term control plan was developed in 2002. Determination that it meets water quality standards by EPA and the district was in 2003. The consent decree was signed in 2005. So 2005 is usually the date we use to set when we were moving forward. New nitrogen limits came in. That was the 950 million nitrogen removal in 2007. And we actually have modified the consent decree to account for actually changing the long-term control plan. It wasn't originally for the original purpose of the long-term control plan. It was to also do nitrogen removal. That is subject to a modification that we are finding that is actually part of the package that is going to the Federal Register. The part that is the nutrient removal has not at all been a matter of controversy because in fact the manner in which we changed the long-term control plan to also do nitrogen removal improved the performance of the long-term control plan. So we are technically also noticing that change, which was to extend the tunnel, you'll see in a moment, all the way down to Blue Plains, but that has never been a subject of controversy. We've never actually done the step of modifying the original consent decree to the change that everyone has agreed to do both nutrient removal and the Clean Rivers project. So that is part of the notice. The big question has been whether to open the consent decree for green infrastructure as part of the remedy rather than the current status. And that has been happening since at least 2011. I came into DC Water 2009. I look back at my interview sheet when I was interviewed in May of 2009. And the first issue was customer connection. The second was green infrastructure. So I interviewed on this issue back in 2009. So for me anyways, this has been a priority since I arrived. This is the original, well, not quite the original. This is as it's modified to support nitrogen removal in the permit. I'll describe how that is. But this is the main element financially and construction-wise. This is by far the largest part of the consent decree remedy is what we're doing on the Anacostia. And you can see the part that was added, and again, is part of the notice that will be in the register, but not the part that has been controversial, is increase. The original consent decree plan was ending here at Poplar Point. And the idea was this huge tunnel system would be essentially a cistern underground and would be pumped back up at a new pump station here, go through existing forced mains down to Blue Plains. That was the original remedy. What we added to do nitrogen removal for the NPDES permit was this segment of the tunnel going all the way down to Blue Plains. So that is an addition, and that is subject to the notice going into the Federal Register. What this additional storage is, for nitrogen removal, the challenge at the plant is attaining nitrogen levels at peak flows in storms. So this gives us extra holding power for additional flow coming into Blue Plains that can then get better treatment. So it was a nitrogen removal process for our permit, but it also allows the capture on the Anacostia to be improved, just in sheer volume. So the piece that, we'll get to. So this was the original. There is, in the current long-term control plan that has been accepted by the court, a tunnel along the Potomac River, and then a small tunnel up at Rock Creek. There were projects to separate. There were a variety of other smaller steps that have been taken. most of which have been done. We have been tremendously busy on this project. I am pleased to say that we are either on or ahead of schedule for any of the requirements that we have under the existing consent decree. I hope no one has any questions about our wherewithal to do what we say we're going to do, and once we agree to have done. This is that first phase of tunnel that we added from here down as part of the nitrogen removal. This is essentially, Lady Bird is about here. So Lady Bird has tunneled its way all the way north. As you all know, the big tunnel boring machines that we use to build these tunnels each get a name and a tweet account, and Lady Bird was the first one started, and it has made its way here. This final segment hasn't been done. The second is Nanny. Nanny's sitting at RFK Stadium ready to drill south to Greek. The third, we haven't actually started this component, but we have put in Lucy. There's the tunnel boring machine going on First Street. This entire process is $1.8 billion or so of the estimate for the total of $2.6 billion. So it is by far cost-wise. This is 13 miles of tunnel. And in the average hydrologic year, because you have to pick a set of years to compare your performance to for weather, since weather is always variable, the average hydrologic year, this system when built will capture 98% of the overflow, which in that hydrologic year otherwise would overflow to the Anacostia. I don't think there's a city in the United States that will achieve a 98% capture performance at the end of a control plan. Where the amount of construction, if all you have to do is drive south on 295, go across the Frederick Douglass Bridge, our South Capitol Bridge, that you'll see the construction that we're doing. We've let $1.3 billion of construction contracts. We use design build to get this work done on time. And as I said, so far we are on time and on budget. That's even to budgets that were set in 2005 for a project of this scale. A remarkable undertaking. One of the good pieces of news is how much performance improvements we've achieved already. This is the result of a 9 minimum controls effort that is somewhat parallel to but separate from the tunnel long-term control plan, as well as work we've done under the tunnel. Blue are the numbers for what was the original overflow quantities when we started this project. Total here, 3,254,000,000 gallons of overflow, again in the average hydrologic year. We had to pick a year to use as our constant measure throughout, so we're always evaluating to the same criteria. And you can see we are already down to 1968. Significant reduction by over 1 billion gallons from where we started. So we've had significant improvements to performance from where we started, but when we finish, you can see where we seek to be, which is 54, 79, and 5. It is an incredible performance level. Like I said, I admire what cities are doing across the United States. I know most of the people in those cities after my years in the industry. I don't think there is a city in the country that will have performance numbers anything like what you see up on this screen, and we're proud of that, even though our ratepayers are certainly paying the freight. We have done a lot. What I charged our engineering team, and we've got a superb Super Bowl engineering team at DC Water, as far as I'm concerned, but was to treat green infrastructure the same way you would gray. Same kind of performance metrics, same kind of modeling. How would you do this with not exactly the same level of certainty? A tunnel is under our control. We maintain it. We know where it is. It's underground. And this kind of resolution obviously is dispersed out into neighborhoods. So there are differences. But have at this, and one in the same level, if you can, of engineering excellence, performance, and evaluation as you would any of the solutions that you implement. And one of the aspects was to do as much as we can to know as much, so that when you do propose remedies with EPA, Department of Justice, and the city, we have some confidence in what we're going to be able to actually do. So we've already invested $14 million. I think the board would have had a big problem with me had this all not gone forward, because this is mostly $14 million we did not have to spend. This is ratepayer money that we've invested into this effort to get us to this point. And you can see the kinds of projects we've done. Some of it was required. 3.5 million here, that is part of the existing consent decree. And just bear that number in mind. Of a $2.6 billion remedy, what we were mandated to do under the consent decree for green infrastructure was this $3.5 million. So $3.5 million of a nearly $3 billion consent decree. These projects are done. We had the press conference today at Fort Reno at the giant green roof. We have more than an acre of green roof covering our reservoir at the top of the city. But we've done that at all of our facilities. $3.5 million allowed us to green our big facilities, and we've done that work. River Smart Washington, we've helped demonstrate $1 million. I think we invested in this. There it is, $1 million invested in that project. The Green Infrastructure Challenge, many of you have been involved in that, pushing the industry, the green industry, to try what's the most innovative things that you could try, so that as we do this project, if we gain the approval of the modification for the next 10, 15, 20 years, we want the best. We want to push the envelope, so we've invested in that. And we've done a lot of bioretention in the Bloomingdale and LaDroit Park neighborhoods. It was good for performance in that neighborhood, those of you who understand the flooding that's there, but it also is giving us a lot of data about cost per square foot, the operational questions that an organization like ours wants to have, because that's what we need to run the enterprise. So where have we been? As I mentioned, this was the existing plan. I want to emphasize, I think everybody in the room knows this, I just want to state it again. No changes whatsoever to this side of the plan. The Anacostia plan, well, in the modification package, just to be totally accurate, there is the change to the consent decree that enables us to actually improve the set plan, which is the extension of the tunnel. So there is a part of the modification package connected to that. But the only thing that has happened on this side, the vast bulk of the work that we'll do under the long-term control plan or Clean Rivers, is that we've accelerated work. That's not because of any negotiation with EPA, the Department of Justice. That's because of agreements we've made with the city, particularly up in this part, to relieve flooding, which has been in 2012 in particular. We had 4 major flooding events where we never had more than 1 or 2 in any of the previous years. There was the second tunnel of very substantial size along the Potomac River. Independent of all other questions, we have been very concerned about delivering on this tunnel for a whole slew of reasons. This would be a 35-foot interior diameter, as I recall, or some huge. It's huge, much bigger in diameter than this tunnel, from south of the Kennedy Center to north of Key Bridge. And imagine trying to build a 35-foot interior tunnel in that neck of the woods. Presents challenges independent of any of the other ones we've had here. Can you actually do that work in the middle of Georgetown, given the scale of that operation? And then the smallest of the tunnels was up on Piney Branch to reduce some of the overflows going into the Rock Creek. We made a proposal, which is why I was here over a year ago, to present the case for a modified plan. The modified plan was to eliminate the Piney Branch tunnel and do green infrastructure in an area we think large enough to be able to do enough of it to capture the stormwater that otherwise would be going in, made the tunnel necessary. So this was the area we would be doing green infrastructure for this tunnel, eliminating it. We had anticipated shrinking the Potomac tunnel, but not eliminating it. And those of you who remember long enough on this, my original proposal, it wasn't formal to EPA, this was a meeting we had maybe 5 years ago, was to completely eliminate the Potomac tunnel and see if we could do the whole thing with green. We became convinced that that just was not going to, we couldn't capture enough volume. So our proposal was to have a shorter tunnel for the Potomac, as well as green in a particular area for some of the upper levels of overflow, and then a separation project where we actually would separate the storm line from the sewer lines. And that was the proposal that we received 500 comments on. So that was what was posted, that's why I was here. And what we've been working with EPA, Department of Justice, and the city was, having read all your comments and evaluated them, what was the consequence? What were we, having gotten all this good feedback, how would we modify the proposal? Just to give you a sense of the comments that we got, we did do major outreach. We had the summit, I was here. We also did 14 other public and ANC meetings. We like to think that DC Water will be with anybody, anywhere, anytime, if the schedule allows. That's the only question, is you can't be in 2 places at once. And I was on NPR, some of you called in, as I recall. We just went out every way we could to make sure, including a front page Washington Post story, Washington Business Journal, Washingtonian, to get the information out. Public notice began January 12th. The comment period ended April 14th. It was 92 days, in fact, from start to finish. So a very extensive public comment period that enabled everyone to really get to know the project and comment on it. We had 366 comments with 471 different comments reflected in those comments. 60% supported, 38% other, 2% were opposed. 38%, in my judgment, didn't directly oppose, but were asking questions. My judgment was some of those questions came in a manner that answers that they would like, they might have flipped over to the opposed range, but the comment itself was asking questions as opposed to being in direct opposition. This is a summary of the comments, and we will put this, not only you put it online, we'll put this online ourselves, shoot it out over all of our various media outlets because we want everybody to see it. But you can see the kinds of players which we were pleased about. Pardon me. Sorry, how are you? Which we were pleased about because there is a very wide range of interest and comment on the proposal, as you can see summarized from across the board. Environmental groups like those of you, probably every organization in this room submitted comments. But from a whole wide range of parties, it does show how environmental projects and green infrastructure as a possibility has connections to many enterprises, which is one of the benefits that we see from it. We did try to summarize the key comments that we got in. Nature of the commitment, the big issue was performance measures, that's no surprise. Feasibility, effectiveness of green infrastructure, schedule. Again, you'll all remember, those of you who were at the beginning, I originally sought 8 years and then a decision. That didn't go over all that well. So we reduced it to 7 years in the proposal, and there was questions about the 7-year extension, so that was part. Disruption of the tunneling, this was sort of on another angle of just what's going to happen in Georgetown if you do the scale of project you anticipate. Cost and impact on ratepayers, there's a lot of folks who are concerned about increasing rates. Commitment to maintenance, the advantage of a tunnel is that it actually needs very little maintenance. They only are in operation when there's a huge rainstorm, otherwise they sit down there empty and it runs by gravity most of the time. The Potomac Tunnel needed a deep underground pump station, which is a whole different category of consequence. Nonetheless, the maintenance of long-term effectiveness of this dispersed system of green infrastructure, and a lot of commentary on the green jobs that would be enabled by green infrastructure. So what's the new plan? This is the exciting part. And as I will say again, I believe the plan is better and stronger because of the input that we have received from the public. Parts of the plan remain unchanged. I won't have to say anything about it. The Anacostia side has not been modified other than an agreement we made with the city to increase the performance of this tunnel, not performance, the timing of this tunnel. Was going to be completed in 2025. We're now going to complete it in 2022. So that's 3 years ahead of schedule and extremely expensive because this is the $1.8 billion angle on the project. So, but this is not subject to the consent decree. The modification of doing it faster, the consent decree says by when you must have something done. There's no challenge to EPA, the Department of Justice, with us doing it sooner than they said we were done. So we didn't have to get it changed in the consent decree to accelerate performance as opposed to delay it. The other part that has not changed is what we seek to do for the Piney Branch Tunnel, which is once again to eliminate the Piney Branch Tunnel and to do 365 acres, is my memory of, oh, here it is, 365 acres of green infrastructure. Those of you who've seen the green roof at Fort Reno, that's about an acre. So multiply that by 365, and it's a lot of green infrastructure. There's a lot to build, but a good swath of the city in order to achieve 1.2 inch of rainfall being captured by stormwater in this sector. And then here's where we made the biggest changes, and not that there weren't concerns about Rock Creek, there certainly were, but most of the commentary of concerns about performance, no surprise, was here. And the big change, which I like actually independent of its support of green infrastructure, but I like it having learned from Carlton and John and our engineering staff, is in the manner in which this can be operated over time. The prior tunnel, as you recall, was this big. We had proposed in the alternative to do a tunnel that big, but there was an underground pump station that we needed to build. And those are complex, difficult to build, difficult to maintain, and sort of a risk over many, many years of performance. That's the weak link in these programs, is underground pump stations. There's just too many things that can go wrong. So what the design alternative, and I give tremendous credit to Carlton and his team, I can't even describe how many meetings there were, most of which I was not at, so even the ones I was at, there was a lot of going over and over and over, different designs, different ideas, how could we accomplish performance, improve the question on maintenance, and get to the level of performance that we sought. And what we're planning to do in this alternative, which is subject to the 30-day comment period, is in fact to vastly expand the length of the tunnel and eliminate the underground pump station. So the tunnel will still be along the Potomac, along the 4 outfalls, the 5 outfalls that we had originally planned to cover. But that tunnel will connect all the way down to the big Anacostia tunnel. So rather than sitting there and being pumped out of a pump station into existing sewers, it now will flow by gravity, which on a maintenance basis is much better for us. This is a 30 million gallon tunnel, so the capture of how much it can store is very significant. And the extension will go all the way down to the existing tunnel system. So when Carlton originally brought this to me, it was sort of like, oh my gosh, I never even knew that was on the playing field as something that was possible. We still anticipate doing a separation project for 2 of the outfalls, CSO 25 and 26. And green infrastructure, again, the 1.2-inch capture, same level of capture for Rock Creek in the Potomac area, and then in the area you see outlined in green to achieve our performance numbers. So this, as an overview, is the plan that is part of the proposal that will be published shortly in the Federal Register. So let me just summarize the nature of the commitments. For the Rock Creek, we're looking at a $16 million investment in green infrastructure that will be focused in that area, mostly.
That was our draft plan.
Oh, this was the draft, I'm sorry. That was the question, is we were limiting it to dollars. The original draft was $60 million. Here, we're going to get to a performance level of 1.2-inch rainfall. 365 acres is what we anticipate being needed to achieve it, but you'll notice that the dollar number, we're going to do what it takes with one issue that I will reference to achieve the performance that we see. That was a very significant modification. Potomac River, same kind of change. Here there was a number. Here, 1.2-inch rainfall, 130. We've anticipated so that we have some sense of budget and what we're doing of what the acreage is based on the latest, best models for performance of green infrastructure. 365 acres in Rock Creek, 133. That's taking impervious and transforming them into green infrastructure. So that is what the proposal is. And we're going to construct the facilities to manage the specified volume. This is a big deal. This was something we heard from you. Volume is our goal as opposed to a strict dollar figure. That makes those of us on the revenue raising side very nervous. But it is something that we want to achieve a performance level, so there's a volume capture that we're identifying. Effectiveness, there is one aspect that allows us to turn this proposal off and go back to gray. I call this the catastrophe clause. It wouldn't actually be a catastrophe. It's not like a catastrophe or a hurricane or something. But this would be having the project not deliver on any of our anticipated results. Because none of us want to spend 10 years and $100 million plus on a remedy if we have a pretty good idea somewhat earlier on in the process that it's not going to work. Because then once we got to the end of it, we would have done all this work. If it doesn't work, we'd have to go back and do something else, and performance would be delayed even farther. So we prepare our flow. We've already invested a lot, as you know. These TM stands for Technical Memorandum. And so we've done a whole bunch of reviews. We've looked at what's the best in the district, what's the best from anywhere in the country or world. We've written up documents, what technology, screening, modeling. We believe, and not because we knew it ourselves, that we have looked across the country and determined what's best out there to be able to do this work. But that doesn't mean we know what's best. If any of you have better stuff, we're always open. We always want to know what's going on. We'll prepare a program plan for how we're going to build this, just like we would to build a tunnel. We'll construct the first phase in the Potomac and Rock Creek, so we're going to be doing some in both of the two areas where we target green infrastructure. We're going to once we do that, constructability, operability, efficacy, public acceptability, cost effectiveness, and our hope is that there will be a public group who will understand and be part of every bit of that evaluation, so this is not done in secret. I personally anticipate, absolutely, I wouldn't be here otherwise, or I've helped commit $14 million of DC water ratepayer revenue if I didn't think it was going to work. But we're going to make a determination. If there's something that happens that just indicates that despite all of our best efforts, hopes, and dreams, that it's just not going to deliver on the performance goals that we seek, we would have this would be a very clear public decision, so it's not something made in secret. But we report a determination. It's on a sewer shed, so it could well be that for one sewer shed, being the Rock Creek, there would be a different decision than for the Potomac sewer shed. So it's not one for both. Both would be site-specific evaluation of the data. If it's practicable, which is our hopes, we go. If it is not practicable, either one, we'd have to go back to constructing a larger tunnel on the Potomac and a tunnel on the Rock Creek. So this is always the backup performance, that if this turns out this does not work, the tunnels are our backup, and we would return to them, and we know tunnels. We would complete projects from either direction by 2030. That is the 5-year extension that I've identified. And the performance equivalent, I'm going to come back to that. It's probably the single biggest change. Timing has been one. The second is, I used comparative the last time. Our team now, and I'll show you the charts, is talking about equivalent, or by the charts, better performance than gray only. One way or the other, by 2030, we're committing that we want it this way and believe this way will work, but one way or the other, we will achieve that performance numbers. Valuation, we want to have certainty on the CSO objectives, defined end date. I won't spend a lot of time on this slide. Why do we want to have that evaluation point? We want it to work. Ultimately, what everybody in this room wants is a remedy that achieves the water quality goals, which is why Vicki and everyone else engaged in this effort starting back in the 90s. We want the water quality objectives to work. And while I believe in my heart that green infrastructure will attain those goals in the manner in which we've designed it, which is a meld of both, if it turns out for some reason it does not, we will shift back to the gray only and make sure we deliver on the water quality goals. This is the puts and takes on performance times. So it's not all 5 years. There is, we originally proposed 2032. 2032, that was the 7 years. We pulled that back to separate on the Potomac River. So there is a significant improvement for one aspect on the Potomac. CSO's 25, CSO outfalls 25 and 26. We had committed in the proposal to separate those by 2032. We've moved that up to 2023. So we wanted on the Potomac to have one portion of the remedy be much better than what was. This is better than what either the original proposal, which would have been 2025, not the original proposal, the existing long-term control plan, the original proposal for part of the Potomac River. The modified proposal improves performance on timing from either of the predecessors. The Potomac River, we had proposed to finish the green infrastructure by 2028. We moved that up a year to 2027. Potomac River Tunnel to be finished with that now much longer and more extensive engineering project. It was originally 2030 for the short version. We've stuck with 2030 for the long version. So there, the Potomac Tunnel, that is 5 years different than the tunnel we currently have planned in the long-term control plan. For Rock Creek, we also said the diversion structures improvements would be 2032. We'll do that by 2020. So we've moved, again, for the Rock Creek, portions of it up by 12 years. Rock Creek green infrastructure, we said would be done by 2032. There's a lot to be done up there. We moved that up by 2 years to 2030. So significant acceleration over the recommended plan. And this does not mention the acceleration on the Anacostia side, which is 3 years for the whole program. Schedule change necessary. For green infrastructure, it's really about adaptive management. We're going to be learning a lot. It's interesting, as I just yesterday was in Philadelphia meeting with cities from around the country about green infrastructure. And one of the biggest issues that are raised by our compatriots in Seattle, Portland, Denver, Philadelphia, and New York, and DC were the cities that were being highlighted, was the mechanics of digging up city streets at the street level. I suppose one advantage of digging a tunnel is there could be a tunnel being dug right under our feet right now and no one here would know it. It wouldn't matter to the traffic out on the street. you dig up streets in Georgetown or in Upper Ward 4 near 16th Street, the challenge of doing that work and integrating it, getting it done properly and maintaining it, knowing who's going to maintain it, is one where we want to have a lot of do a project, learn from the project, evaluate what was done, do the next project. We've accelerated the performance dates, as you've heard, but it still is an interactive program of doing, learning, doing, learning, doing, learning. And my guess is, while we'll start doing things well, we'll get better and better and better as the years go along. For Gray, this is the biggest change that I don't think we anticipated one way or the other in the consent decree, is the environmental impact statement that we are doing now for the Potomac Tunnel. That is a new challenge. As I said, the existing tunnel design, well, it makes a lot of theoretical engineering sense. That's going to be a challenge, that would be a challenge to build under any circumstance. We believe the design we're going to present is going to be easier to get approved, not that anything will be easy. And then we're going to have a very substantial engineering project that has a much greater extent than we had originally anticipated. It's now not quite as long as the Anacostia Tunnel, but it, as you saw, it cuts all the way across and connects down. Financial affordability does come into both. Importantly, I do not believe that our alternative is going to have a total price tag that's any different than the existing price tag of our consent decree. It might be a little more, it might be a little less, but no one at DC Water is embarking on this direction because we think we are going to save money. A 5-year extension does allow some margin of rates won't go up as fast. They'll end up in the same place because we have this total dollar number to cover, but we'll get a little moderation in how much and how fast the rates increase, and that really does matter. As I just finished the 9th public meeting for our 14% average rate increase this year, and we had 350 people plus come to our meetings, and there's a lot of concern today. And you project out our rates to the 2020s when we're doing this work, and our rates will have doubled again. It doubled in my tenure from 40 to 98, more than double, 45 to 98. They'll be double again in the mid-220s. That's becoming a very substantial challenge to fixed income and low income customers. How about it? CSO controls, short schedule. We want to emphasize to the folks in the room, we believe where we've ended up is actually very consistent with consent decrees that are, in fact, our belief is that our consent decree in Washington will be the most protective in the United States. I'm happy to have other cities compete with us. That's righteous competition. But just comparing it, and I know the people in every one of these cities and they're good folks, but the time frame for most consent decrees, I won't say all, but most consent decrees being negotiated are 25 years. Some cities have gotten longer than that. I think Atlanta got an extension beyond that period. But 25 years is sort of the standard state of the art for how to get this done. Ours was 20. The 5-year extension puts us at 25, which is very analogous to what most other cities are getting today. Do others consent decrees have green? Yes, at various levels. Philadelphia, most of you know, has by far the most green, but their performance numbers are also much lower. This would mean in 25 years, they will have 50% or so reduction. And that's the big challenge that we face. We want 96% reduction. And again, there's no city in this, and there's other cities, so this is not meant to be exhaustive. Like I said, we don't compete with anybody anywhere at the percentage capture we have relative to other cities. So the performance of our plan is really remarkable, and after the modification continues to be remarkable. A little more detail. This was the original tunnel. These are the big outfalls. You walk in Georgetown, you'll see the signs for the CSO overflow points. We had planned to remove these from the beginning. That's always been part of the plan. This is a brand new park here. All of you probably have been there. So I've shuddered at the thought of the construction scale level necessary to do this project in that brand new park. Coming down, there's the Kennedy Center, Watergate, past going in here with that's the existing Potomac pump station. A new pump station would have been here. Again, incredibly difficult engineering and planning and permitting challenges, independent of performance or otherwise, of building Lincoln Memorial, Kennedy Center, We want to stick a big pump station and build it right in the middle of all that. It won't be an easy task no matter what we plan to do. This is a very hard place in the world, for a good reason, to do gigantic engineering projects. A disruption in the tunnel, benefits of the gravity. This tunnel, this is the length. So again, we're going to stop here. What we've added is the entire extension of the tunnel that will run down to meet, we call this the Blue Plains segment, but the tunnel that comes all the way on the Anacostia. There was all sorts of engineering challenges with the pump stations, one that was new, the other that is there already, to make this old plan work. We think the extension of the tunnel is not only going to reach our performance goals, it guarantees performance and reduces maintenance costs for us in the long term to vastly extend. It also, by the way, saves a lot of power. When you have a pump station 10 stories underground and the weight of water that's picked up, we have to pump it all the way up to go across. It's unbelievable how our power bill jumps and our power use jumps when those pump stations go on. We'll have none of that here. This is all gravity, using the force of the earth to move this flow. Ratepayer dollars. This is how rates have been going up through 2024. Don't worry about the blue and green. This is just how it changes. This is sort of internal to us. This was last year's projection, and this is this year's projection. All that means is we're pretty good at projecting. They don't change dramatically, but you can see where this is this year. And to our ratepayers, the 350 people plus who came out to our town halls, their view is that this is way over. That this is an incredibly good. If you went back 5, 6 years, it was here. So this is what's going up and projected all the way through. As I said, the total cost of this is analogous. With such big numbers, my guess it actually probably will be a little bit more than the anticipated cost, but it's in the same ballpark. It is extended out for a longer period. It allows us to mitigate rate increases. Ultimately, they will come. We do have ratepayer dollars. This is analysis we've done of what parts of the city in 14, 20, and 25 have income problems, affordability problems with our rates. The EPA guidance on this, which is being looked at now, is 2% of adjusted gross median income for water, 2% for sewer. I have my own opinions as to what the heck that means to anybody. In DC, we have folks who have nowhere near adjusted gross income on one side and way above adjusted median gross income on the other. So it's not it's like we have this segment in DC and that segment, and the number is pegged in the middle. Nonetheless, so what we were looking at was a slightly modified version of this, but you can tell, no surprise, that as we go forward, the elements of the city that have significant affordability challenges are expanded. And a lot of it exists now. And I've had a lot of people come in wards that are green, because that's just on median. There are plenty of people in those wards that have challenges today with our rates, let alone in 20 and 25. Maintenance. We will perform maintenance or arrange for others. We're committing to the maintenance of these projects. There's a very significant green jobs component, not only in the construction of green infrastructure, but in its permanent maintenance. A tunnel, we just did a century bond to fund a tunnel because it can last a minimum of 100 years. Green infrastructure, I don't know if any particular installation will last 100 years, but we want it to be working a decade from now and a decade after that, which means we have to maintain it like we would maintain a pipe or a pump. So we will implement a program necessary. And we anticipate that Mr. McGuigan will make sure this is part of our MPDS permit going forward, so that maintenance, it will become an obligation. We have no problem with it becoming an obligation because in our view it already is. We have got to figure out a program to make sure, this is by the way the Green Roof Fund for Reno, that these systems get maintained. There is a clear and explicit commitment on maintenance, I want to emphasize, in the recommended plan. Green jobs, this was a huge comment. This was actually the class that graduated. They were trained in putting in the green roof at Fort Reno. My recollection is that 4 of the 6 candidates were hired as of that date from companies who work in the district doing this kind of work. We anticipate about 300 jobs will be created in green infrastructure, and the mayor and I signed an MOA today committing a goal of 51% of new hires to be district residents. We have a certification program for green infrastructure that is not done anywhere in the country. We're going to have all sorts of programs and education and outreach. to build a network of people who can do this work. So it's something that we're really excited about, independent of the fact that it is good on a values basis. DC Water has to, gaining the support of our ratepayers, we have got to prove to our ratepayers that all this revenue that's coming in, yes, it delivers environmental benefits, and that's a fundamental, but it also is delivering back to the communities that are delivering the checks to us, and this is one of the ways we can do it both ways. Green infrastructure, you can see it on the street, unlike a tunnel. The job is someone you can point to and see how that has benefited someone in the city. So we think we have benefits coming back on both fronts. We have an MOA. I won't go through it all now. It is very extensive. I don't think any city in the country has done anything quite like the MOA that we have. DC Water's program that we had independent of this and for this is called DC Waterworks. We have our own program to encourage local hiring on our $4 billion capital program, and our operating budget this year is $575 million, so it's just a gigantic operation. This, for the green infrastructure component, the MOA only is about that portion, but there are elements of it we are going to apply to the rest of our work. But there's a whole series of outreach, certification, job training, facilities training, mentor internship, a whole range of steps we're going to put in. Use of green infrastructure, district residents. We've never done this before, but there's percentage performance over a series of years, 10, 20, 30, 40, 51. So we're staging it up, but we have numbers to meet hiring preference. For companies, a preference. That doesn't mean you win if you're a district, regardless of any other attribute. It means you get a preference. If there are two equal companies or two equal candidates, the district firm or the district candidate would win relative to a comparable applicant from outside of the jurisdiction. Predicted performance. Now, this is a big deal, and one of the things I have to say, I think I almost had a heart attack at meetings. A good heart attack. That's the wrong phrase. What should I say? I had to do the happy dance at the meetings we had at DC Water when these numbers started coming in. The number of overflows on Rock Creek before 25 to 1 to 1, 39, 1 to 0.6. So what you're going to see from the long-term control plan to the recommended plan, we're either at the performance number that was in the original long-term control plan or better. So that was our goal, is to be equivalent. That's a word we had shied away from because that's a very tough standard, but equivalent or better. And that's what our goal is, 96 to at least 96. 74.4, so the number of overflows is the same. 79 to 59, so volume we believe in our recommended plan is better than the Clean Rivers project. Again, minimum 92%, which is what the Potomac River is at. These overflow numbers don't change because the storm events that trigger an overflow from either one of these proposals is so big that it don't matter what you do. That's the hurricane level project or storm. That almost no matter what we build, you have those kind of storms trigger overflows. As you can see, for Rock Creek and the Potomac River, we're at or better than the performance that's anticipated in the Clean Rivers, the long-term control plan. This is a more detailed chart, which I won't go through line by line, but it's in your presentation. But once again, this is what was true beforehand. This is the long-term control plan, and this is our recommended plan. And what you'll see is 12, it's either the same. In fact, it's the same on every one except for this one. So our recommended plan is hitting the same very specific numbers that we had for the control plan. Same for some of the numbers are a little bit lower. So you do have, so like I said, it's either the same between the two or better. That we have never been able to achieve. We're not able to achieve in our prior versions of the plan. Benefits, I don't have to spend a lot of time here. The environmental benefits, we've all wanted to improve water quality. Nobody wants sewage or stormwater. I know we focus on sewage, but you see all the crud that comes off the street and it goes out right to the river. It's not much better than what's coming out of the sewer system. It's pretty atrocious, and we're really, really pleased that we're able to do a project with your help that's going to capture 96% of that. But the green part adds so many other benefits, we believe. We are going to reduce energy use by putting the tunnel in rather than the pump station. Air quality, summer temperatures, the whole 9 yards for what green infrastructure social benefits of reaching into neighborhoods and the city, jobs and businesses we want to support. I think we're going to gain a lot of friends and allies to what we seek to do for the environment, from activists in this area, who will be beneficial to us when we have an ask on the environmental side, that they can become a friend and ally of ours. Green jobs is huge. Next steps. dcwater.com/green. Obviously, Chris can post this, but we'll be putting the executive summary of the modification, the complete document, includes the responses to comments, which is Appendix K, if you want to see the responses to your comments, the comments received. It's just that you'll have more information probably than you'll ever actually want or look through, but it's there. And if you want to look for it, more power to you. We'd love to have you do it. There is a comment period, that's what we've heard. We'll start as soon as the public notice goes out into the Federal Register. This goes to a court, so ultimately we'll have to persuade a judge that the plan that we come up with is the appropriate one, in which case the judge will have a final say on whether the modification is approved. We have a whole bunch of extra slides that are on there. I just wanted to include them. I won't go through them because we summarized with comments that we received. I want you to have a sense of how detailed we are in what we're planning to do. Like I said, we're treating this just like we would a gray infrastructure project. The same kind of engineering excellence, learning, improvements, and how this is all going to work. And this is part of the $14 million plus that we've been investing in the project. So, Carlton, anything? That concludes the presentation. I'm sorry that went on so long, but